Hello everyone, we are group 6 and my name is Hiren and my other two teammates are Arpit and Josh. Today we are going to discuss about three open source vulnerabilities which we have found and to start with the first vulnerabilities. The first one is the prototype pollution with remote code execution and the CVE for this vulnerability is 2019-7609 and this vulnerability was reported in the year 2019. The severity score for this vulnerability is 10, which is high, and affected software for this vulnerability is the Kibana. Well, Kibana is an open source pre-priority data visualization software which is used for the Elasticsearch, and the affected version of the Kibana are 5.6.1 and the earlier version of that, and the specific one 6.6.1. The vulnerable parameter for this vulnerability is the timeline visualizer. To talk brief about this vulnerability, well, two environment variables are used to create a reverse based shell, and the first one is created by attacker and the second one which is picked from the Linux. This environmental variable is used to control all the variables which are running in the system, and these two environment variables are merged to override the object properties in the JavaScript, which is known as the prototype pollution. And then after this shell is executed into the timeline, and once the shell is executed, the canvas which is a second visualizer of this Kibana is open, and it creates a new process node for the attacker. Attacker able to get a root privilege using the command line prompt, and then after attacker is able to perform the remote code execution, and also attacker is able to get the sensitive information for the Kibana. To talk about the second vulnerability, my teammate Arpit will continue.
To discuss further, the second vulnerability is breaking out of Docker via runc. The CVE for this vulnerability is 2019-5736. The severity score for this vulnerability is high, and that is 8.6. And affected software for this vulnerability is the Docker. And Docker is an open source software and is a set of platform as a service products that use OS level virtualization to deliver software in packages called container. And the affected version of the Dockers are 18.9.2 and earlier version of that. Now moving to description of this vulnerability. So this vulnerability affected all container engine running runc from version 1 to RC6, and the vulnerability allows a malicious container to access root level code execution by overwriting the host runc binary. And malicious container could overwrite the host binary with minimal user interaction. To execute code as root within a container, users were only supposed to run commands either in the following context. The first one is creating a new container using an attacker control image, and the second one is attaching Docker access into an existing container which the attacker had previously write access to. Now, when talking about impact of this vulnerability, a malicious actor who creates a specifically designed container image can get administrative access on the host by exploiting this vulnerability.
Hello everyone, I am Josh and I am going to talk about the remote code execution vulnerability using the CGS servlet in Apache Tomcat. This security vulnerability is also known as CVE 2019-0232. The severity of this vulnerability is rated as 8.1 in high category. The versions that were affected were below 9.0. Okay, so when running the Apache Tomcat on Windows machine, it becomes vulnerable as the CGS servlet becomes open to remote code execution. That is, it will start accepting any type of command as the developers didn't put any code sanitization in their code properly. So if an attacker will type in any Windows command to know the directory location or something, he'll get access to it without any interruptions. This can be risky for the user's privacy and data safety. The source code for the vulnerable version can be found in the link given below. Now, there are many ways to be safe from this vulnerability. The first one is simple. Disable the enable command line argument parameter in the configuration. And another one is that the developers can add the input command code sanitization in their code to avoid any unwanted commands that can affect the system directly. This was all from my side. Thank you everyone.
To discuss the future work about our project, we aim to implement these vulnerabilities on mentioned open source software to generate POC for the demonstration purposes. Apart from this, we will also try to analyze the code change behaviors with the exploitation to use further it as a remediation strategies, and we will also propose the mitigation strategies to eradicate these flaws. Thank you.